Because News. Congratulations to my runners-up, Jen Caruana and Chris Sandiford. Because News is written and produced by Vanessa Greco, Alex Redicop, Gavin Crawford, Phil Long, and Jess Klimowski. This week they had help from Jana O'Connor, Miguel Rivas, and John Blair. Rounding out this incredible team who I love so much is Aaron Conway, Diana Marcoulin, Bronwyn Page, Errol Gonsalves, and our recording engineer, the one, the only Mr. Paul Hodge.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg.
More often than not, when someone is attacked in their home, they know the perpetrator. So in the 2002 murder of a woman named Marlene Johnson, police believed just that and charged Marlene's daughter-in-law, Sophia, with the crime. Not only was Sophia charged with killing her mother-in-law, but the main witness against her was her own brother. I'm Kathleen Goldhar, and this week on Crime Story, a family dispute with deadly consequences. Find Crime Story wherever you get your podcasts.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at minus 20 with mostly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. Manitoba MP Terry Dogood says Canada will respond strongly to the latest threat of tariffs on our country. U.S. President Donald Trump says there will be details this afternoon on steel and aluminum import tariffs, roughly 25% tariffs. Dogood is the Minister of Prairie's Can. He says the Team Canada approach will be effective in dealing with any threat.
And what is heartening is that the mayors all across Canada, our premiers for the most part, we are all on Team Canada. We're all on the same page, and this is a threat to our sovereignty. This is a threat to our economy. This is a threat to our way of life, and we will respond strongly.
Dogood calls the tariffs an economic attack on Canada and its sovereignty. Meanwhile, federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is calling for tariffs against Elon Musk's car company.
We want to put a 100% tariff on Tesla cars. You pick a fight with Canada, we're going to fight back. We're going to make sure Donald Trump and Elon Musk feel it. So that's our vision. We want to be able to support Canadians, to buy Canadian, and we're going to fight back at those that are taking shots at our country.
Singh made the statement in Windsor, Ontario, after meeting with auto workers to discuss the U.S. tariff threat. The leader of the official opposition is also speaking out against threats to the country. Pierre Poilievre is in Nunavut, promising a conservative government would build a permanent military base in the territory.
Hostile powers want our resources, our shipping routes, and to be in striking distance of our continent. Let me be clear. The Canadian Arctic belongs to Canadians, and Canadians will take back control of their Arctic waters, Arctic skies, and Arctic land.
Poilievre says his government would also purchase 4 polar icebreakers, 2 each for the Coast Guard and Navy. He says all the initiatives would be funded by cuts he would make to foreign aid. The province of Manitoba will increase education funding by $67 million next year. New Education and Early Childhood Learning Minister Tracy Schmidt says it'll amount to a 3.4% increase. Schmidt says changes are also being made to how the province funds schools.
We're also making incremental changes to the school funding model, which includes calculating funding based on the best of the last 3 years of enrollment. And this should allow for greater predictability for school divisions.
A new school will be built on Devonshire Drive West in Transcona. It'll be a K-8 school with 74 infant and preschool daycare spots. Schmidt says the neighborhood has seen an 11% increase in the student population, and the new school will address the predicted growth. The new Devonshire school is expected to be open in time for the 2027 school year. The Assembly of First Nations wants families affected by the child welfare system to get ready to file a claim for the harm they suffered. National Grand Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak says eligible claimants will be able to submit applications in 1 month's time.
While no amount of money can make up for the harms done or for your childhood, this $23 billion compensation settlement, the largest in Canada's history, is an important acknowledgement of the harm First Nations experienced in this racist system that has broken so many lives and so many families.
Woodhouse-Nepenak says claimants will have plenty of support. She says First Nations won't have to pay anyone for help filing a claim. And Woodhouse-Nepenak says there will be a call center, online resources, and a network of claims workers across the country to support submissions. The City of Winnipeg and the federal government have announced more projects to build more housing in the city. Today it announced a second round of grants for the Housing Accelerator Fund. The city is awarding $25 million in capital grants to 12 local projects. One of those is the North End Women's Centre on Selkirk Avenue. Executive Director Cynthia Drouet says there's a critical need to help women in the North End and have them have a safe place to live.
Which will double our transitional housing capacity. What is even more exciting about this is that the new building will be built on the parking lot. It will have wraparound supports in place, which will support people in everything from counseling, parenting programs, life skill development.
Other projects receiving funding in this round include a 144-unit apartment block on River Avenue by Brokenhead Ojibwe Nation Development Corporation and Salam Housing in Elgin. That will provide 32 units of rent geared to income supporting Black residents. And finally, in international news, a tragic story. At least 51 people are dead after a bus veered off a highway bridge in Guatemala City. It plunged about 20 meters into a sewage-polluted stream. The president deployed the country's Army and Disaster Agency to help with rescue and recovery. He declared a national day of mourning. Again, 51 people died. We're seeing extreme cold warnings for the Brandon and Dauphin areas in Westman there. Taking a look at the long-range Winnipeg weather forecast, a few clouds heading into the evening tonight. We're seeing clouds this afternoon with a strong wind from the west at times. Overnight, we're looking for a low around minus 29 with a high around minus 20 today. Tuesday, mainly sunny. We're seeing wind from the south, a high around minus 21 tomorrow, but with bitter wind chill at times in the morning. And we're seeing clear skies Tuesday night. Sunshine expected on Wednesday with a high around minus 19 degrees. Things don't warm up anytime soon, however. Sunny on Thursday with a high of minus 22 degrees.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk. Good to be with you. Coming up this hour on the show, Trudeau says Trump's comments about making Canada the 51st state are, quote, a real thing. And as Trump's new tariffs on steel and aluminum are expected to come into force today, we're asking you, how do you feel about our neighbors to the south? How's it changed since Trump came into power? That's our call-in conversation coming up after 12:30. Also, this half hour on the show, we're going to learn about new research that proves the link between climate change and declining polar bear numbers. But first, details about a new school coming for Northeast Winnipeg. That's coming up here on Radio Noon. Stay tuned. Well, the Manitoba government just announced it's building a new school in the Winnipeg's Devonshire Park neighborhood. The new K-8 school will include 74 infant and preschool childcare spaces, and it will meet the growing student population in the River East Transcona School Division. Here's Education and Early Childhood Learning Minister Tracy Schmidt last hour, speaking to students and staff at Bernie Wolf School.
We are very proud to announce that our government is building a brand new K-8 school in Devonshire Park. The River East Transcona School Division has experienced significant enrollment growth driven by new developments like Devonshire Park, and this new school will help to alleviate class size pressures and ensure that kids have the space that they need to learn. This new school in River East Transcona School Division was a priority of our late colleague, Nello Altomare, and we are so thrilled that soon it will become a reality. He knew, and our government knows, just how important it is to invest in children and in education. I am so honored to have been given the opportunity to help build on this legacy, starting with a new school in the community that Minister Altomare called home. As well, this new school will also include childcare spaces for the surrounding community. I want to thank the school division and the local community members for their strong advocacy for this new school, and please be assured that our government does not make false promises. When we commit to a new school, it will be built. We know that Manitobans want a government they can rely on to deliver the very best for their children. And that's why our government is continuing to make good on our promise for stable and predictable funding by increasing school funding this year by 3.4%. This is a $67 million investment that will help us continue to build on the historical investments in education we made in our first year in government, including the fact that we implemented a historic $30 million universal nutrition program so that no kid has to learn on an empty stomach. We hired over 630 educators so that so that kids can have more one-on-one time with their educators. And we are also lowering class sizes for our youngest learners. We also banned cell phones in schools so that kids can learn without distractions. I think that's really important too, hey guys? We're also making incremental changes to the school funding model, which includes calculating funding based on the best of the last 3 years of enrollment. And this should allow for greater predictability for school divisions. In addition, we will be reconstituting the Stakeholder Advisory Committee on School Funding to identify further opportunities to improve the way education is funded in our province going forward. We will continue to have an open dialogue with school divisions and staff and Manitoba families to continue to provide stable and predictable funding for our schools. Today is a good day for Manitobans. It is a great day for students. It's a great day for River East Transcona.
Next, I'd like to invite up Premier Canoe to share more about Radisson's new school.
This is a really exciting thing for kids like you in this part of Winnipeg and this part of Manitoba. Devonshire Park is getting a new school. I'm not as fancy as all the really amazing people at the school board and the department who plan these things. I don't call it Devonshire Park. I call it the neighborhood behind Costco on Regent. But that neighborhood is getting a new school, which is great, right? So it'll be more learning, more fun activities, more reading in the library like this one, and more kids just being able to enjoy things. So we're really happy to be here and share this good news with you. And so when you see that school being built in the future, you can say, hey, I was a part of that. And that's something pretty cool that you're going to be able to carry forward with today. So our team really believes that the best plan for the future is all about education. And so that's why we really want to encourage you as students, as learners, as readers, as thinkers, as Manitobans, and as Winnipeggers to make the most of your time here at school. And so the school food program is one thing that we're really proud of. I was at Wayota School I think it was on Friday last week, and we had a student ask, I think she was only grade 2 or 3, she said, where did you get the idea for the food cart program? That's what she called it, was the food cart program. Really, the food cart that she was talking about is part of a new initiative, a new idea in Manitoba, where every single school in the province gets food. Because we're hearing about too many kids who are showing up hungry, and it was causing problems for them, problems for their friends, problems for the teachers. So we decided to fix that. So I told this young person, we got the idea from our friend Nello. And Nello was a good friend of ours, all of us who work together, all the teachers, I'm sure, and school leaders knew him as well too. Just a great guy, super big on Transcona, super big on students learning. And so we hope that we'll remember Nello too in the future. The more kids learn, the more that they have food, the more that they're able to achieve. We keep Nello, with us.
That was Premier Wab Canoe, and before him, Education and Early Childhood Learning Minister Tracy Schmidt, announcing a new school for Winnipeg's Devonshire Park neighborhood in the River East Transcona School Division.
The CBC News app delivers the answers you want to know and need to know.
What an extraordinary scene.
The breaking stories that shape your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Dropping the 8 now, we're just approaching Gaza.
Your source for mobile news. Delivered when you want, where you want.
This situation has changed very quickly.
The CBC News app. Download for free.
12:13 right now. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk. And still to come on the show just ahead, we're going to learn about new research that proves the link between climate change and the declining population of polar bears. That's coming up shortly here. Also stay tuned after 12:30 as Trump there's a possibility of Trump slapping a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum from everywhere in the world, including us, is just ahead potentially in this next hour. He may just be signing that executive order. We're asking you, how do you feel about our neighbors to the south? How has it changed in the last month or so? We're going to also have an expert in Canada-U.S. trade relations joining us after 12:30. Stay tuned for that. But right now, let's take a quick look at your weather right across the province here. Western Manitoba is under an extreme cold warning running all the way from Swan River down to Boys Vein. That includes Brandon and Dauphin, Minnedosa areas as well. We're talking wind chills close to -40, so frostbite in minutes. Look out for that. Right now in Manitoba, Sprague is your hot spot, sitting at a not so balmy -17. Roblin, your cold spot right now, -29. Brandon, you are at -26 right now with some drifting snow. Churchill, you're -26 right now with some ice crystals. Dauphin, you have some haze at the airport. You're sitting at -26. Thompson, you're getting some light snow right now, -22. And Winnipeg at the Forks, -20. Well, new research now definitively links climate change to the decline of the polar bear population. 42 years of polar bear data has been analyzed and published in Science magazine. Model simulations of historical data were used to assess the impact of disappearing sea ice. This kind of scientific knowledge is vital if the trend is to be reversed and the polar bears saved. Louise Archer is the Polar Bears International Research Fellow at the University of Toronto, Scarborough, and lead author of the study. She shared the findings with CBC's Laurie Hoogstraten.
Good afternoon. How are you? Nice to be here.
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good.
Good. So tell me, what is the link between climate change and the polar bears disappearing from the north?
So the critical thing for polar bears is that they rely on sea ice as the platform that they need to hunt seals. So almost all of the food and the prey that polar bears take in is by hunting seals. So they walk along the surface of the ice, catch them, and seals provide a really high energy food source for them. But as we've seen climate warming progress, we've also seen a decline in sea ice over the years. So in these more southerly areas, like in Hudson Bay, we see the ice melting earlier in the year and freezing later. And the bay is actually ice-free in the summertime, which forces all the polar bears onto land in this region. And what that means is they have a shorter hunting season and a longer, what we call a fasting season on land, because there's really very little on land that they can access and eat, or that will provide enough energy or calories to sustain them. So that's what we really honed in on in this study is energy as the link between climate warming, loss of sea ice, and polar bear population health.
So what were the kind of mechanics or research done that demonstrates this link? How did it all come together?
Yeah, so the way we tackled this problem was to think of how a polar bear takes in and uses energy across its entire life cycle, right? So we built what's called an energy budget model. And really what this does is it's kind of like calorie counting for a polar bear. So using data on polar bear physiology, things like the amount of fat a polar bear can carry, the amount of calories in the milk provided by female polar bears, we used all of this data to build a model of a polar bear's energy use. So we tracked how much energy a bear takes in from feeding on seals on the sea ice, and how much energy it expends when it's moving, growing, reproducing, all these kind of things. And we did this for the entire life cycle of a polar bear. And then we did it for thousands of polar bears. And we looked at how changes in the sea ice over the last 4 decades in the Western Hudson Bay region impact the energy balance of the bear. So because we're seeing this shorter hunting period when they're taking in energy, and a longer period when bears are what we call in an energy deficit. So they're on land, they're still burning calories, but they're not taking in any food to cover that calorie expenditure. We are able to find that things like reproduction and survival were increasingly impacted impacted by this shorter feeding season and longer fasting season on land. So the mechanics are all grounded in this universal currency of energy, because it really does come down to calories in versus calories out as kind of the ultimate determinant of reproduction and survival. And that all kind of builds into overall population health and the number of bears that can persist in the region.
There were a lot of scientists involved in this, weren't there?
Yeah, this was a really great collaboration. We had mathematical modelers working on the quantitative side. We had field biologists who've been out studying polar bears in this region. We had physiologists involved as well. So it was a really collaborative piece of work where we really needed all those different areas of expertise to bring this study together and be able to go from the model through to the physiological underpinning and also bring in the long-term monitoring data as well. So yeah, it was a fantastic collaboration to kind of put our heads together and start to really take a kind of a holistic look at what's been happening to polar bears in this region. And it shows the value, I think, as well of these both long-term monitoring studies. So this is one of the best studied populations of polar bears in the world. It's been studied for many decades. That allows you to kind of look at these long-term trends, but then also these kind of more in-depth studies at physiology too that have really taken a deep look at what's happening to bears in this region, and that allowed us to develop this kind of nuanced model. So yeah, it was a fabulous collaboration and very, very lucky to get to work with some fantastic colleagues on this.
Yeah, so broad and so wide-ranging and so definitive. So what, if you had to name the top issues that this report highlights, what would they be?
Yeah, so the key things that we found from this were, first of all, we've seen a long-term decline in the body weight of bears as sea ice has been lost in this region. So we're seeing on average about 9 to 10 days longer time bears are spending on land per decade in this area. And along with that, we've seen the body weight of bears has declined. So an average adult female is about almost 40 kilos lighter now than almost 4 decades ago. That had knock-on effects on reproduction in this population. So we've seen the litter size of females has declined over that time, so they're having fewer cubs. We've also seen cubs are really the most vulnerable part of the population to sea ice loss. And that comes down to mother bears with a shorter time spent hunting on ice. They're not taking in enough energy to be able to sustain lactation. So as the female, as her hunting season shortens, that means she struggles to provide high fat milk for her cubs. That has a knock-on impact on the cubs' ability to survive the time on land, and ultimately cub survival then drops, and that's what drives this population decline. So we have seen the population has almost halved in the Western Hudson Bay region since the 1980s and into the early 1990s. So that really is a key part of that is what we're seeing happening to cub survival in this area and reduced reproductive success as well. So that's a really key point, is that keeping cubs healthy and ensuring that bears have access to sea ice for as long as possible is essential to ensuring healthy polar bears across the Arctic, and that bears can persist into the future.
And just as a final question, and it's a big question, what needs to happen now based on this research?
Yeah, so the critical thing that we've really identified is polar bears need sea ice. They need sea ice to hunt, to take in their energy. This we've known this previously, and this study really underscores just that direct link between sea ice and polar bears. So to keep polar bears, we need to ensure there's sea ice present, and that means slowing down and stopping rates of climate warming, which ultimately comes down to reducing greenhouse gas emissions that drive up rates of climate warming. So really taking action to mitigate emissions, reduce emissions, and limit climate warming as much as possible are what's needed to keep polar bears. And really, we have a responsibility and a role to play in doing that. We know what we do now really matters for the future of polar bears. It's not a foregone conclusion. So the actions we take now to mitigate and slow down and stop this warming will have a really positive impact on polar bears in this region, but across the Arctic as well.
Thank you for this fascinating information and for being with us on Radio Noon.
Louise Archer is the lead author of the study in the polar bears, international research fellow at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. She was speaking with the CBC's Laurie Hoogstraten.
Manitoba is the kind of place that draws you in. Every day it's growing, it's changing. Just when you think you've got it figured out, though, there's something new to understand. I'm Marcy Marcuso, host of the CBC Daily Podcast. This is Manitoba. I've covered the news from the rail line in Churchill to the border in Emerson, and it's talking about the local stories that help us understand this place. That's what This is Manitoba is all about. Find it on CBC Listen or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Here's to the bold. The Professional Women's Hockey League is back. Lace up, strap in, and tune in to Hockey Saturdays on CBC, where you can catch the best women's hockey players competing head-to-head with everything they've got. The puck drops Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on CBC, CBC Gem, and cbcsports.ca. Don't miss it.
12:25 right now. You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1. Well, time now for a bit of music. Brenton David is a rising artist from right here in Manitoba. He blends traditional Métis fiddling with a more contemporary Americana sound. Brenton will be playing at Festival de Voyageur this weekend in Winnipeg, and you can catch him at the Forest Tent on Saturday at 1:15 p.m. And here's a tune from his latest album, The Inner Trail. This is River Running Wide, here on CBC Radio 1.
Radiator's got the house warmed up. Winter around here can be tough, but I wouldn't trade it. There's a fiddle tune on the Métis hour, white sunrise and crocus flowers. We hold our tongue more than I'll admit, but you're in luck if you listen up. I'll let you in on where happiness is. You don't need a reason, go tell them that they're right, and let them keep believing grass is greener on their side. You bet I keep a secret from the left coast and the right. You're bragging would be treason against this river running wide. Well, I bet that city apartment lost a couple stars when your neighbors moved in. It's the party every weekend. It has your toes off the deep end. It feels like you're waiting on a wind. Well, I don't care from where you're coming from or where you've been. You don't need a reason, go tell them that they're right. You let them keep believing grass is greener on their side. But I keep a secret from the left coast and the right. You're bragging would be treason against this river running wide. Pack your bags and sell your stuff, 'cause round here you don't need much. Go tell them that they're right. You let them keep believing grass is greener on their side. You bet I keep a secret from the left coast and the right. You're bragging would-be treason against this river running wild.
From Brent and David, that was Running Wide. You can check him out on this weekend at Festival de Voyageurs here in Winnipeg. He'll be taking the stage in the Forest Tent on Saturday at 1:15. Well, stay tuned here on Radio Noon. Still lots to come. We are opening up the phone lines here to hear from you. How do you feel? What's your relationship with the U.S.? With all the changes that have been happening, the most recent change we expect in about an hour or so, we think it's quite possible Donald Trump will be signing an executive order to impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum that includes Canada. We're going to open up the phone lines and talk to an expert after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, 12:30, we're at minus 20 with mostly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Humphrey. Canada's ambassador to France says the U.S. is breaking international law by making threats against other countries. Stéphane Dion says European allies are ready to work with Canada to avert a trade war with the Americans. The Prime Minister is also in Paris, meeting world leaders at an artificial intelligence summit. Olivia Stefanovic explains.
We, leaders in this room and around the world, have a choice to make.
As U.S. President Donald Trump targets Canada, the Prime Minister is in Paris, urging his global counterparts to eliminate another threat.
We must put AI to the service of everyone in both high and low-income countries, and not just for an increasingly small group of ultra-rich oligarchs.
Trudeau did not mention Trump at the Artificial Intelligence Summit, but earlier in the day, Canada's ambassador to France and special envoy to Europe did.
According to international law, it's not only to invade a neighbor that is against international law and the Charter of the UN, it is to threaten.
Stéphane Dion suggested the U.S. might be breaking international law by threatening to take over Greenland, as Trump continues to make the case for Canada to become the 51st state. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Paris.
Another 12 housing projects will receive $58.5 million in federal and city money to build new and affordable housing. It's part of the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund Capital Grant Program. Winnipeg Mayor Scott Gillingham says it'll spur on $1.6 billion worth of construction projects.
The programs we have in place to build housing are working, full stop. Today's announcement is 2,500 units that will come on stream. Is it enough? No, there's more that needs to happen, or more that needs to be built. But there's no doubt about it, is these investments are working. They're getting units built.
About half of the units built under this announcement will be deeply affordable and rent geared to income. It includes transitional housing by the North End Women's Centre on Selkirk Avenue, more than 110 units by the Main Street project on Main Street, and a 117-unit apartment building on Portage Avenue East. And finally, Manitoba is boosting school operating funding for next year by 3.4%. The province says the 2025-26 amount is well above the cost of living and recognizes cost pressures of salary settlements, and is the highest level of funding in the past 7 years. The increase per division will vary from 1 to 10%. And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba, or you can use the CBC News app.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Back soon.
That is Matt Humphrey at our CBC News desk. Welcome back to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk. If you needed another reason to go, Riley Lachuk is here. He's our weather specialist. Hi.
I'm sorry.
We were just talking, and I'll let you break the bad news because
Okay.
I don't. You can be the bad guy. But,
Okay.
I hear extended period of cold ahead.
Yeah, buckle up for an extended period. Bundle up for an extended period of cold weather. If you needed something more to sigh about on a Monday afternoon. Extreme cold warning in place right now for Brandon, for Westman, Dauphin, the Parkland region, into Swan River. We are looking at low temperatures near -30, wind chill values approaching or colder than -40. That's frostbite on exposed skin in 10 minutes or less in some cases into the overnight hours. Yes, we do get a bit of a reprieve during the day, but the temperatures and those wind chill factors, those wind chill values return through the overnight hours. So this extreme cold warning in place, I'm going to say probably for the next few days for Westman. I'm thinking this warning does get extended further east into the Red River Valley as we get into the evening tonight. We'll have to see what temperatures do throughout the day today, but I wouldn't be surprised if I was sitting here during up to speed and we do have an extreme cold warning issued into the Red River Valley as well. Again, we're looking at several days of extended cold, looking at least the 10-day temperature trend. We're looking at temperatures staying barely above -20. The highest we get this week, at least, -19 for daytime highs, but temperatures staying below seasonal even into the 20th, the 21st of this month, and looking at colder than normal conditions even into some of the extended models. I mean, the further out you go, the less accurate it gets, but it gives us a good picture of where things are headed. So we are looking at cold sticking around, Corey, unfortunately.
Well.
Temperatures right now, very quickly, -25 in Brandon and Dauphin. Winnipeg's at -20. Steinbach's at -20 right now as well. Nothing but clear, sunny skies for the rest of the day today. A little bit of cloud mixes into there as well. So we are looking at the cold sticking around. Not getting above -24 for Brandon and Dauphin this afternoon. That's why we have some of those extreme cold warnings in place. Long range, -20 for Winnipeg, Tuesday, Wednesday, -19 for Thursday, Friday, and -20 for Saturday.
Well, thanks.
Okay, sure.
Appreciate it. Do know, but much appreciated. Thank you,
You're
Riley.
welcome.
That is our CBC weather specialist, Riley Laychuk. Well, now it is time for the call-in conversation portion of our show today. I'm going to give you the numbers now. I'm going to give it again later, too. 204-780-0893. 204-780-0893 is the number to call with your thoughts on these potential new tariffs that may come into effect within the next hour or so. It's only been 21 days since Donald Trump became the 47th president of the United States. And since then, a lot has changed, including the relationship between Canada and the U.S. as threats of wider tariffs loom. Today, Trump is expected to impose a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum coming into the U.S. CBC will actually be hosting a national special on this at 1 p.m. right here on Radio 1. Now, if those tariffs come into effect, that is going to disproportionately impact Canada. In 2024, Canada was U.S.'s largest supplier of steel. And this all comes as Trump continues his talk of annexing Canada by economic force. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Trump's 51st state comments are, quote, a real thing. So today we're asking you, how do you feel about our neighbors to the south? How have your feelings changed in the last month or so, if at all? You can call us 204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. You can also text us 204-588-7355. That's 204-588-7355. And joining me now is Sui Sui, professor of global management studies at Toronto Metropolitan University. She has an expertise in Canada-U.S. trade relations. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
So I just want to kind of set a context here because it feels like forever ago, and so long that we might even forget the fact that this has actually happened before. So when it comes to Trump imposing, tariffs on steel and aluminum, this has happened. So just remind us what did happen last time.
During Trump's first term, there imposed tariff on Canadian steel and aluminum imports in March 2018. He announced 25% tariff on steel and a 10% tariff on aluminum imports. At that time, the reason is cited as national security concerns. Canada granted a temporary exemption, I think, alongside with Mexico, so which means, now imposing Canada first. But June 2018, this tariff will apply to Canadian metals as well. In response, Canada implemented retaliatory tariff on U.S. steel, aluminum, and other products This tariff remained in place until May 2019, when both countries agreed to leave the tariff. And then in August 2020, the Trump administration reimposed 10% tariff on certain Canadian aluminum products. I think talking about surge in imports. Canada planned to retaliate, but suspend its countermeasure after U.S. lifted these tariffs in September 2020. So yes, we've seen this before. Steel, aluminum are easy targets for tariffs.
And why is that? Why steel and aluminum? Like, why are they such easy targets?
I would say because of the volume. So I've seen Canada counts about a quarter of U.S. import for steel and about almost 80% in some of the months hikes about aluminum imports to U.S. So it's a very easy target. It's done before. It has a significant impact on all sectors. Machinery, automobile, appliances, essential. So yeah, I would say because of volume, and also because Canada is major exporter of those products, so they are easier targets for the tariff war.
204-780-0893. That's 204-780-0893. Give us a call. How do you feel about our relationship right now with the U.S.? What's your personal relationship right now with the U.S. Since Donald Trump has taken the presidency? That's number again, 204-780-0893. I kind of want to now fast forward to now. How different is it this time? So this time, we're still waiting to find out if this actually, things are pretty unpredictable these days. We expect this is going to happen today. It very well may in the next hour or so. But this time it seems like 25% tariffs potentially on both, and it's around the world on all aluminum coming into the U.S. What else is different this time?
I was this time, Canada and Mexico are not getting the exception for the tariffs. So this is a trade war for all the countries. The Canada, Mexico, EU, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, China. I would say last time is Trump really said China, 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 right? But this was everyone except U.S. So I would say this kind of overall broad trade war for all other countries as the difference this time.
And I think one of the things also that at least feels different is the fact that last time, like you said, the stated reason was national security, but this time there's this kind of overarching fact that Donald Trump says he wants to annex Canada through economic force. And this makes you wonder if this, we don't know for sure. I mean, he talks about trade deficits being a reason for these specific tariffs as well. But if that's part of it too, I mean, when we talk about this idea of annexing through economic force, how much is that I don't know, a possibility, but how concerned, should Canadians be that this is actually something America can do?
Yeah, I would say very concerned. I just saw Financial Times article called Neo-Imperialism. I would say is new economic imperialism, use economic forces such as investment, trade as a way to control other countries. So yeah, yeah. So there's, I would say, no matter what concession Canadian government's going to make toward tariff, there's U.S. Trump administration never going to be happy, never going to be enough, right? And I think, whatever excuse, national security, too much imports, all the drugs, it just not happy, not enough. I would say this greediness, you're never going to satisfy such greediness. Whatever concession you make, there's always, more demand. So, I think play well, since this is a dynamic interaction, we're going to repeatedly see the patterns, so that is very important, for Canadian government to make, to respond to, the tariff war.
Well, and that's tricky too. Like you said, if in fact this is just something he'll never be completely happy with, or the goalpost is always going to move. Really, the only real tools we have in our toolbox to counteract these are these retaliatory tariffs. Can these at least make a difference to kind of say, like, hey, like, back off, like, don't like stop these tariffs? Will they even make a difference?
I would say yes, because one thing, our production, manufacturing economy is deeply integrated with the US companies. So, for example, steel aluminum, lost in the supply chain. So basically, when Trump, imposed tariff, we're going to impose on the US importers, US producers, US manufacturing, and eventually to US consumers, right? And so hurting Canada because we're so integrated is hurting US at the same time. And I would say, although we are relatively so small compared to the US, but I would say, the Trudeau government is working to work with other countries because this trade war is US against other countries. So strategically respond, collaborate with other countries, with other leaders, can strengthen our, I guess, effective in fighting the trade war and the, never satisfied with demand from the U.S. government.
And the other tool we kind of have in our toolbox we've been kind of talking about is, making interprovincial trade a lot easier. For steel and aluminum in particular, would that make a difference? Allow us to kind of be a little bit more resilient when it comes to these potential tariffs?
I would say so because there's, I think because we also, import aluminum steel from US, right? So it's not just one way. I would say absolutely remove the inter-province trade barriers will help, but still, Canadian economy relative to US is small, so the demand will be small. Because of the tariff, there'll be higher costs for the aluminum steel production. For aluminum production, mostly, I think 90% is in Quebec. So for the steel, I think Ontario and Quebec. Also, I think Manitoba has a lot of manufacturing use aluminum and the steel. Heavy machinery equipments are essential. So strengthen, our domestic production and remove the, interprovincial trade barriers and also collaborate with other countries, go beyond the US. For example, non-China, I think, imposed tariff on US imports of agricultural machinery. So suppose you're not in the supply chain with a US company. Suppose you produce agricultural machinery yourself. Then it's opportunity for you to build new trade relationships with those countries are in trade war with the US.
Assuming these tariffs do come into force today, and that kicks off a trade war. I'm just curious, when it comes to trade wars, how unique is this trade war that we're potentially getting ourselves into here compared to trade wars of the past? I mean, like, is it normal for the people kind of kicking it off to be this unpredictable and just kind of moving deadlines, and all of a sudden on an airplane saying, "Hey, oh yeah, I'm gonna just slap tariffs on aluminum"? Is that a thing that always happens, or is this a unique kind of trade war that might be starting here?
I would say with this US Trump administration, yeah, that's the character. I would say, you can see many countries, including Canada, China, when they make a counter tariff retaliation, they're very strategic. They plan for long term, right? But in US, I see this short termism. You don't say a month after, you don't say 6 months after, you use tariff, whatever come to your mind. Yeah, it's weapon as a threat, right? But works. Doesn't, I can remove it because it's really US picking up other people. For example, US Canada relationship. If US want to work well with Canada, we're very happy. We will collaborate. So we basically responding for the turfs. So I would see this uncertainty, not very strategic, turf threat as political pressure and weapon against other countries. I would see this, again, one tariff of another remove, hopefully, and then, but there's this uncertainty here, and I would say this is going to happen in the next a few years.
And you think Canadians should be prepared to be in this kind of unpredictable trade war for the long haul then? Because I forgot that, like, it actually, these tariffs on steel and aluminum, at least last time, were actually in for quite a while. It wasn't just like a few weeks and they were lifted. Like, it was a bit of a long haul. Is that generally what people can expect?
I think we should at least prepare for the long haul. And again, I don't think we can never make enough concession make the U.S. government to be happy. So what happens when they're not happy? There's tariff trade war, right? And that's their political weapon. So yeah, we need to prepare for the long haul, which means strengthen our domestic production and diversify our trade partners beyond the U.S.
Professor, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity for being here.
Sui Sui is a professor of global management studies at Toronto Metropolitan University. She has an expertise in Canada-U.S. trade relations. Stay tuned to CBC Radio 1. Trump is expected to sign an executive order in the next hour or so to impose tariffs on steel and aluminum. Host Susan Bonner and Peter Armstrong are hosting a radio special to cover those expected tariffs starting at 1 p.m.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
New on CBC Gem this February. 3 inspiring films that celebrate Black history. Summer of Soul unearths never-before-seen footage of the Harlem Cultural Festival in 1969, featuring music's greatest artists. Invisible Beauty profiles fashion icon Beth Ann Hardison and her lasting impact. And Queen of Glory takes us on an intimate journey of the Ghanaian immigrant experience. Watch them all for free, starting February 1st on CBC Gem.
Well, have you ever opened your smartphone only to be confronted by a picture from your past you weren't expecting to see? Well, these days, our handheld technologies are constantly serving up our old photographs in the hope we'll engage with them. But this constant looking back is affecting how we experience nostalgia. CBC's Blair Sanderson has this snapshot of how our perception of the past is being shaped by pictures our devices won't let us forget.
When it comes to making memories, a day at the beach is often a good start. That's where researcher Beate Jungselius goes with her family in the summer months, near her home in Gothenburg, Sweden.
We will have a lot of seagulls. Winds, always quite windy. Probably a lot of kids running around, screaming.
And when the moment is just right, Jungselius will snap a picture on her phone and share it online, only to have social media remind her of it months later.
Now it's winter here in Sweden, so it's super cold. Then that's a nice fuzzy feeling being evoked, of course.
Jungselius says the tech giants know nostalgia is a powerful force that can keep people on their platforms longer.
People actually voluntarily engage in these practices of social media nostalgizing, that they seek up these memories because they want to evoke these feelings of nostalgia. On this day, 3 years ago, you did this, you might want to reshare it, and so on.
But not everyone is happy to be confronted by pictures of days gone by.
Sometimes it's a deceased pet or something else that you've posted that the context changes and it's just no longer the happy memory it once was.
Nicolette Little teaches media and technology studies at the University of Alberta. She's researched the impact photo prompts can have on victims of gender-based violence.
Some of the responses I was getting was that iPhone's memories was pulling up photo after photo after photo of this survivor and their previous ex because they were smiling, they were happy. And what was also interesting is that iPhone often pairs these slideshows that they stitch together. They pair it with kind of music that's often quite cheerful. And so that was also extremely, quote unquote, creepy. Having images of your abuser come up one after the other, you two smiling together, paired to this kind of like creepily cheerful music.
Little says the algorithms sometimes get it wrong because they rely in part on how much engagement your photos received the first time you posted them, even if later you wish you had never taken the picture at all. As it turns out, how people respond to our pictures can also affect our own memories of a given event. That's according to Swedish researcher Beata Ljungselius.
If we get a lot of positive feedback, that might enhance the memory. For instance, I went to a concert. I got a lot of likes. Then it could be that I might remember this post more, and I might remember this concert more than another concert.
Ljungselius says this is significant because the concert and the act of posting about it online are often two separate experiences. But over time, our minds may conflate them, with the social media reaction coloring how we remember the event itself.
Which is super interesting because this is, of course, a new way of engaging with technology that we haven't seen before.
A technology we haven't seen before that shows us a plethora of pictures we have. For CBC Radio, I'm Blair Sanderson.
My phone recently served up a bunch of photos of my kid when he was a baby. He's a toddler now. And I was like, oh, cute. So I hit it. And then it started playing and it was cute photos. But the music was the kind of music you only hear, like really sad music at a funeral. And it made me very uncomfortable. And it was just, I had to turn it off because it was not okay. So there actually are ways, if you are wondering, and I haven't really tried it again since, there are ways to engage from these nostalgic features on our phone. So most devices and apps have adjustable settings that can actually either stop them altogether or even block certain people or periods of time from popping back up on your screen. Well, speaking of nostalgia and music, this is going to be a little bit more appropriate music for you. Many performers have covered Bob Dylan's 60s ballad Boots of Spanish Leather, including Joan Baez and the Lumineers. And now Montreal rockers Half Moon Run have put their own spin on it. Here's their cover of the Dylan tune. This is Half Moon Run with Boots of Spanish Leather. You're hearing it right here on CBC Radio 1.
Sailing away, my own true love. I'm sailing away in the morning. Is there something I can send you from across the sea? From a place that I'll be landing. If there's nothing you can send me, my own true love. There's nothing I'm wishing to be on it. Just carry yourself back to me unspoiled. From across that lonesome ocean. But I just thought you might want something fine. Made of silver or gold. Coast of Barcelona.
That's Montreal band Half Moon Run with their cover of Bob Dylan's Boots of Spanish Leather. Well, we are coming up now to the end of Radio Noon, but still plenty of lovely local programming happening today, like Up to Speed with Faith Fundal. And Faith Fundal's in the studio now to tell us a little bit about what to expect. Hello.
Corey Funk. We're following a whole bunch of stories, including talk of the U.S. imposing 25% tariffs on steel. We are still waiting to hear what that might mean for Canada, so we'll get the very latest on that. We'll also hear more from the CBC's Nick Purdon, who brings us the story of one community where women have to travel hundreds of kilometers to give birth. So more on these maternity ward deserts coming up on the program this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Faith.
Thank you.
That is Faith Fundell. They'll be hosting Up to Speed this afternoon from 3 to 6. You'll also want to stay tuned because coming up in, well, just a couple minutes here, CBC Radio 1 is hosting a special to cover those tariffs. Oh, actually, sorry, we actually just got an email right now actually calling that down. It's actually not happening anymore. So stay tuned. It's actually going to be the next chapter coming up. Things change very quickly. Not that the tariffs aren't happening, but the special isn't happening. So just to be clear on that, things change very quickly these days. But do stay tuned to the news to hear what the latest is on those tariffs. Big thanks to everyone who helped put together today's show. Marshall Hodgins, Sierra Sanders, Wendy Parker, and Kevin Nipatebo. I'm Corey Funk, and whatever you find yourself up to today, hope you find yourself doing something you love with the people you love, even if it's inside. Corey Funk, have a good one.